Very excited to move on over to the introduction of our guest speaker. We are so proud and excited to have Alec Broadfoot with us today. He is the CEO of VisionSpark, and VisionSpark is a firm that specializes in key leader and executive search, and they also provide consulting on hiring and training key leaders within organizations. Today, Alec is going to be discussing the 6 indispensable traits of leaders, and I am going to stop my share, turn the share over to you, Alec, and just say thank you so much for being with us. So I'll give you the floor, the virtual Zoom floor, and you can take it away.
Great. It's wonderful to be here. I've heard nothing but great things about your community, so I really appreciate this opportunity. Can you guys see my screen all right? No?
It is coming. You have started screen sharing, but we don't see anything yet.
Oh my.
You're like halfway there. We're rooting for you. It's not a big deal.
So we did this in rehearsal here and it worked fine. So I'm not sure what happened here.
Don't worry. Yeah, just maybe give it another go if you can. So you were screen sharing and we just still see those words. Oh, there, you did it.
Okay. It took a while. All right.
No problem. Take it away.
Yeah. So so today we're going to talk about the 6 indispensable traits of leaders. Just a quick story about myself, and some of you have already heard this, but almost 20 years ago now, I had a mailing and printing company, and we processed mail for large companies here in Columbus, Ohio, where I'm at. So Chase was one of our big customers, McGraw-Hill, Mettler, Toledo, some national customers, and we had a really good business. And we processed mail for these companies. We pick up their mail in the afternoon. We'd have it to the post office that night. We did over 200,000 pieces of mail a day. And it was just a phenomenal business model. We had a machine like this. I don't know if you can make it out. This is a Pitney Bowes machine. They take up, a very large room. And so this particular machine did about 10,000 pieces of mail in an hour. And so we had machines and people that processed mail. Growing company, profitable, like I mentioned. We were nominated for Ernst & Young's Entrepreneurs of the Year. And I was, doing some self-reflection and realizing, where are we not strong as a company? And I realized we're not strong in hiring great people. And so I looked at our turnover, and we had about 70% turnover, meaning 3 out of 10 people stayed with us. So we either fired them or they resigned. And so it got to a point where I reached out to my mentor. I said, what am I doing wrong? And he said, well, are you using any sort of data or science when selecting people? And I said, no, tell me more. So he introduced me to an assessment product, and we started implementing this assessment, and the assessment transformed our hiring. We had, instead of 3 out of 10 people staying with us, we had 7 out of 10. And so at that time, we were looking for an executive assistant, and I had gone through 3 executive assistants in a year. One tested positive for drugs, the other joined a cult, I kid you not, and the other was a young mom that wanted to stay home with her new baby. And so we could not find an executive assistant. And so this one particular woman interviewed with us, and she knocked the interview out of the ballpark. Now, this is 20 years ago when I didn't know how to interview. Obviously, here at my company, we know how to interview well, and I thought, man, she's it. This is great. I can't wait. I had her take the assessment, and the results of the assessment were horrible. And I said, this cannot be right. And so what did I do? I decided to check her references and prove the assessment to be wrong. And so the references checked out. They all said she was a good employee and to go ahead and hire her. So we hired her, and within 3 weeks, we end up letting her go. We fired her. Everything the assessment said was spot on. And fast forward to 2012, I started VisionSpark with the passion of helping entrepreneurial companies find and hire key leaders. And I did that because I saw so many of my entrepreneurial friends making the same hiring mistakes, hiring based on gut and instinct. And so I'm going to share a little bit with you on the 6 indispensable traits of great leaders. Let me show you the assessment that we used in the mailing company, and we still use today at VisionSpark. So this assessment here, there's a portion of the assessment that measures mental aptitudes. All good assessments, when it comes to hiring great people, should measure someone's cognitive ability, or as one of my clients like to say, cognitive horsepower. So you can see on the left side here that this assessment measures mental acuity. That's someone's learning speed. Business terms, memory recall, vocabulary, numerical perception, mechanical interest. So these are 6 mental aptitudes that are evaluated in the assessment. And so all good assessments evaluate mental aptitudes. Another trait of a good assessment, it has brackets of where you want the candidates to be in. And so you can see here, we have a fictitious name. This is a real assessment. We changed the name to protect the innocent. We decided to name this particular candidate Chaos. And so K's results are all outside of those brackets. So we know, we can predict with some degree of certainty that she's not going to score well. So at VisionSpark, we've been placing leaders in entrepreneurial companies for over 12 years. We have over a 95% success rate. Early on in our days at VisionSpark, I realized that we did not have as high as a success rate. And so I would dig deep into situations when a particular client had a candidate or a new hire that wasn't working out. And I found that there were 6 indispensable traits that they had. And so, I'm gonna give you a brief overview of the assessment, and then we'll go into those 6 traits. You can see here, this particular candidate, his name's Miles Ahead, and Miles' mental aptitudes are all within the brackets. So we know with a good degree of certainty that Miles is going to, he's got a high mental acuity 8, which means he's a really good problem solver and critical thinking skills. He's got phenomenal business terms, meaning he knows language, his vocabulary is strong, his memory recall, his observational skills are strong, and he's got great attention to detail. And so we know he's going to be a strategic thinker and a strong communicator. Now, another part of this assessment measures personality, and I know there's 1,100 assessments out there. I've heard of most of them, and most assessments do measure personality. So here's going back to Kay's assessment. Kay has her flexibility score there is a 1. And so flexibility is someone's orientation towards process. Okay, so this is a good trait to have for visionaries. You know, some of your visionaries may be highly flexible or highly creative. It's a good trait to have for people in, marketing and advertising. But for individuals that are leaders, is not a good trait. So we want someone who is process oriented, who has a score that is in that 5, 6, 7 range for leadership. Kay's organizational skills is a 2 here. So Kay is low in organization. So she does not have it's not in her nature to predict, to anticipate, to value planning. And so we know with a degree of certainty that Kay is going to struggle as a leader in this company. And now if we go to Miles' assessment, Miles has all the scores are in the benchmarks. We know that he is going to be a great leader based on this. So it's a phenomenal assessment. We use it well, and it actually has a third part that I didn't show you today, but it can actually measure if someone's actually trying to game the system and exaggerate the results. And so it's a very high quality assessment. So what are the 6 traits? As we dug into these leaders that were struggling, what were the outliers? What caused them to not be as good a leader? And why we're so successful today is we make sure that leaders have these 6 traits. So here they are. Number 1 is that they're strategic thinkers. Okay, so they have the ability to problem solve, critical thinking. When situations happen, like the pandemic, they have the ability to pivot, make really wise decisions. And so good leaders are strategic thinkers. Not all leaders, not all candidates that we interview here at VisionSpark have that strategic thinking ability. Another indispensable trait is that good leaders are organized. And I'm not talking about they have their files correctly organized on their computer and on their desk. Everything's got a nice tidy spot. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the ability to predict and anticipate. Someone who values planning. A good leader is someone that's going to look forward to the L10s and quarterlies and annuals and making sure that the company is following a plan. They have really good time management skills. So that is a great trait of a leader. Like I mentioned a second ago, good leaders are process oriented. They know how to create processes and they know how to implement processes. And so, if someone's pretty creative, they may not be necessarily a good leader. They may be a good visionary, but I wouldn't have them being on the leadership, being a COO integrator on that leadership team. Oftentimes when you interview, the individuals that interview really well tend to be on that creative side. They can think on their feet. They tend to be disorganized and they have the ability to wing it. And so they interview really well. And then you end up hiring them and say, what is going on here? Why aren't you able to do your job successfully? Another dimension of a great leader is that they're people oriented. And so in this day and age, more than ever, more important than ever, is that good leaders are people oriented. Individuals don't quit companies, they quit bosses. You've heard of that, right? And so leaders in your company need to be people oriented. They're also strong communicators. I 2.5 years ago, I saw my clients having tremendous success with hiring an integrator. And I said, you know what? I have to hire one here at VisionSpark. I've been at this for almost 10 years without an integrator. I've been multiple seats. And one of my weaknesses was communication, right? So what is the old adage? You have to say something 7 times, clear and concise. So really good leaders are good communicators, both in person and in writing. Another indispensable trait is good leaders are a coach, right? So EOS talks about, you want to lead, manage, and hold people accountable. I want to add to that is that they need to be great coaches, okay? So leaders want to develop their employees, they coach, they bring them up, they encourage, and they hold them accountable. And so, just as you look at assessments for your company, know that pick ones that are easy to understand. It's not like reading tea leaves. You don't need to find a guru to interpret the results. They have clear success brackets. They assess for mental aptitudes. That is so important. Mental aptitudes will tell you about 2/3 of the information that you want to know about an individual. In terms of follow-up, you can scan this QR code here. Number 1, you can opt in to get free interview questions. So these are some of our best interview questions. If you want interview questions in your process, you can opt in that. If you want to get a copy of my book, I wrote Insider Secrets to Hiring Your Number 2 Leader. I know you guys are all phenomenal number 2 leaders in the organization, but just in case you may know somebody. And then lastly, if you want to test drive that assessment tool that I was talking about, we would be happy to have you have one of your employees in your organization take that assessment. I would recommend someone who is struggling in the role. They're not the right person in the right seat. And so we'd be happy to provide the assessment and a consultation for the LIFT community. So that's it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alec. That was tremendous and you got a lot in a short time. So kudos to you. Feel free to stop sharing.